Hello everyone, welcome back again to my channel, and this is same series of clean architecture with CQRS and mediator pattern. Okay, so far what we have covered in this series, see last session we have covered, actually we have complete that that command section, that command section. Okay, so let's see, last time we have complete delete command and delete command handler. Okay, so in this application layer we have completed all the things. So far what we have covered, just recap. Okay, so that you can aware. Okay, if anything missing you just join in this channel first time, so definitely you can go to my channel and you can see other things. So we have, let me zoom in. So see, we have create architecture of that, in this clean architecture, and using CQRS pattern and mediator are also. And in here we first actually create architecture, how we can set up the project architecture setup. Then one by one we have just create then layers. Okay, there's a 4 layers, and then finally we have implement one by one. So first we have implement domain layer, and then we have implement application layer. And inside that application layer there is a many things, actually this using a CQRS pattern, so we implement query and command implementation. Okay, and also we have implement some common things, like we have we record some conversion of entity, domain entity to view model entity, so that conversion also we have to do that. Okay, so now we will implement infrastructure. Okay, so I already explained. Please go to my previous session. I already explained what is that infrastructure layer and what does. So before proceeding, I'm especially recommend, okay, visit my channel, and definitely you have to check out my all previous section. Okay, so that you can sync with the, like, what we have covered. Okay, see, all everything we have complete over here. Okay, so this is a series. Okay, clean architecture with CQRS pattern and mediator. So this is application one, this is application series, and this is a domain layer. Also we have implement domain layer, we have set up project architecture overview, also we have explaining. Okay, so and so. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so what need to do first for implementation of infrastructure layer? So this is actually outer layer of this clean architecture. Okay, so first we have to adding some dependency packages, so that actually be using some database provider. Okay, so here we will use, like, we can use SQLite, we can use SQL Server, many things. So based on that requirement, actually we have to add some uh, packages. Okay, so in this session we actually using a SQLite, so we have to use some packages. So right click on that, go to NuGet packages. Okay, first package we required actually Microsoft Entity Framework. Okay, so let me add that entry framework, search for that. Okay, so let me, yes, Microsoft framework. Okay, let me, yeah, so Microsoft Entity Framework core, so let me install that one. Okay, done. Okay, then next would be not SQLite. Okay, actually we using in this demo SQLite database. Okay, so that's why we are installing this. If you want to change the data provider, so you can just change it to like SQL Server, so you can just install SQL Server instead of the SQLite. Okay, so for the demo purpose I am using this one. Okay, so let me install that one also. Okay, this one also done. Okay, one last things we required for this infrastructure layer here are tools, Microsoft Entity Core tools. Okay, so let me search that one, also just install. Okay, that also done. Okay, package is installing correctly. You can see, you can go to that project file. Also you can check out, and you can check like what are the things we have installed. Okay, so these three things we have installed. Okay, so that is done. Then we have to implement data. So in this data we have to create one context. Okay, so right click on that, create a context, create a class. Okay, let me name it blog blog blogdb context. Okay, okay, so let me implement. Okay, make it to public. Okay, and just inherit that DbContext class. Okay, DbContext. Okay, DbContext. Okay, once you will get, see, this is inside of the entity framework. Okay, so that we can implement our data provider. Okay, so let me create a constructor. Okay, inside the constructor actually we have to inject that data context option, db context option. So db context options. Okay, and here you have to mention whatever your db context class. Okay, so our class name is db blog db context. Okay, and make it to as a set as a variable. Okay, and then finally call to your base class. Okay, so base class, pass it to actually the base class, because it is passing, then actually it's holding everything. So okay, so yeah, that is done. Okay, so then I can one more additional we have adding over there, so let me remove that one. Okay, and bring that code so that you can able to see. And I think one missing. Okay, yes, that is done. Okay, so this is simple. You if you don't know about that, how we can create and what is that db context class and how we can create it. Okay, so please watch my that old some of the session. Actually I explain everything, like, because this is part of entity framework. Okay, so you have to then learn something about entity framework. Okay, so that is done. And then finally what need to do, we have to create a dbset. Okay, and I think we have extra curly brackets. Okay, so only that one is required, not extra curly brackets. Okay, so finally inside the class what need to do, we have to create dbset. Okay, whatever dbset actually we want to use for the CRUD operation, like insert, update, delete. So here we are taking a one example. Okay, so in this blog we want to insert, update, delete. Okay, so dbset we have to pass our entity. So what is our entity? Our entity name is blog, so which is coming from domain entity layer. Okay, and then finally you can set get set property. Okay, that is done for this db context class. Okay, so this is sufficient. Okay, so what we have done, we have created a db context class, we have injected db context, and inside the db context just whatever db context options on this class we have just to pass to in the base class and a base property. And then finally we have set the db context. Okay, so this is part of actually entity framework, so don't worry about that. I explain everything in my some of the video. You can go and you can watch it and you can understand, okay, how is that working. okay. And then finally we will implement the repository, okay. So in previous session, or first session of the domain entity, see, we have created an abstraction repository, okay. So now this abstraction repository we have implement in this infrastructure layer, in this clean architecture, okay. So what need to do, we have to create this class, implementation class, in here inside that repository, infrastructure repository folder, okay. Add class, just add iBlock repository, okay, done. And then public, make it to public. And then finally what need to do, just inherit that iBlog repository, okay, and implement all the method, okay. So see, implement interface. So once you did this option, so you will see all the method, all as implemented with this new implement exception, okay. We will remove and we will do one by one implementation, okay. So first what we need to do, first actually we have to inject that DbContext, uh, this DbContext class, so that whatever operation we will do inside this implementation, so that we can you know we can perform on there, okay. So let me inject, sorry, let me create a constructor, okay, so that I can inject that DbContext class, dbblog DbContext. And then finally we have to create field and assign a private, create a private property and assign to in this constructor level injection, okay. So this is done. And actually this DbContext actually will do insert, update, delete, everything will manage over here, okay. So this is part of entity framework, okay. So first what we will do, we will implement create, okay. So how we can do that, it is simple, very simple. Blog DbContext, okay. And blogs dot add async, there is a two method actually, add or add async. So we'll use add async, okay. And this add async will pass that entity, whatever domain entity we are getting, okay. And then finally we'll do blogs underscore blog context dot save change. So whatever entity we have added in this entity framework, so we will just need to save changes, okay. And also there is the option of save changes async method, so we will use that async method. And finally we'll return blocks, okay. Whatever new blocks will added will return back to UI, okay. And it is just complaining just because we using tags, so we have to use async, okay. And make sure that await, okay. So see, this is done. This is very simple. Like I want to insert, update, delete. In actual DbContext, allow to that all the operations, like you want to add, your entity will be add, insert, update, delete, everything. Also save change, rollback, commit transaction. So and many things, many facility provide actually as a DbContext uh, implementation in this entity framework, okay. So let's move it to the next, okay. Then we have to delete, we have to do delete performance. So let me, instead of wasting up time, just replace that code, okay. This is very simple. Again, just use this, okay. And we are also see, they required actually some async method. So let me put some async method, async. And there is a finally, is not a right name, so delete blogs, okay. So see, and also there's an executed method, it is inside of the entity finbug.code. So let me bring that namespace. Okay, this is done. Also delete also done. Then finally get all blocks. Okay, so how we can get that all blocks? It is very simple. Just one line of code, you can get that all the blocks from the database. So simply blogs, let me change it to correct name, blogs. Okay, also that name is not correct. Okay, let me blogs, and then finally async. Okay, see, it is also done. Let your inject DbContext, and then you can get that DbSet, and then finally to list async. Okay, that is also done. Then get y id. So let me copy paste and also change it to blogs, and change it to async, and then change it to that name. Okay, this is also done. And then finally we have to update. Okay, so here we have to update that entity. Okay, how we can do that? It is very simple. Okay, so that get by id also, this is very simple. Like see your blogs dataset, and then finally you're just trying to fast and default finding this based on the id, whatever id you're passing. Okay, so it will filter, give us to here. Okay, and finally just implement delete update operation. Okay, and in this update operation we don't require here. Okay, and DbContext also just release the name and also blog. Okay, so finally just complaining something. Okay, now it's done. So see, it is very straightforward implementation. Just inject your DbContext class, and in this DbContext class just you can use, just add async, then and then you can just delete. Okay, so delete directly, you can just delete here, and just you can get that all the entities, and then you can just filter the entities, and also you can just update the entity. Okay, so there is a way we can use and we can implement that, blog repository or repository class implementation. Okay, so this is done. And finally what need to do, we have to just make sure everything is fine. Just let me build this solution, and so that we can make sure yes, whatever implementation we have done, so that is working fine, there is a no issue. Okay, yeah, see, build succeed, there's a no error. Okay, but one more thing we have to do actually, we have to resolve that dependency. Actually we have create, db context class, we have create, implementation of that block repository. So all of things we have to actually resolve the resolve dependency. Okay, so that's why actually in this layer, actually the infrastructure layer, we have created a configuration services. Okay, so in this configuration service we have to resolve the dependency. Either once you will use this one to in your API, okay, definitely you will get that error, it will complaining some error. Okay, so how we can do that? It is very simple. Okay, so first what need to do, see, I created actually DbContext class, but we don't know what is the connection string and stuff. Okay, so that's we will getting from that UI. Okay, API layer, user interface layer. Okay, and that we will use over here. So how we can do that? It's very simple. So services, okay, dot add DbContext. Okay, and in this add DbContext, what is our context DbContext object name, class name? It is a blog DbContext. Okay, so DbContext db blog DbContext, sorry, blog DbContext. Okay, and then finally what need to do, you can just create some lambda expression options. Okay, and then finally, okay, let me options, not option actions. Okay, options. Okay, and in these options we have to ask, okay, what service provider we actually trying to use. So okay, so inside that options we will use SQLite. Okay, see, this is SQLite, because we actually use that entry framework, so we can use the SQLite as well as we can use SQL Server, but you have to add that packages for SQL Server. Okay, but as of now for this demo I will use in this only. And also one more things we have to passing over here from user interface, see, I configuration. So I configuration we have to get those connection string value. Okay, so let me get that value over here. Configuration get connection string. Okay, and then we have to specify what is the name. Okay, so that name could be something like that, blog db context. Okay, blog db context. Actually this name you have to mention in our user interface API uh, application setting.json file. Okay, don't worry about that, I'll mention once I implement it application layer. I'll explain. Okay, and then what need to do, just complete these things, then just check if it is null. Okay, if it is your connection stick null, so what we will do now, we will throw the some exception. Okay, so let me throw that exception. Then throw new invalid operation exception, and then we can pass some message. Okay, so what is the message? Connection string blog db context not found. Let me just give another for as a logging purpose. Okay, why it's missing, because sometime might be we are missing that connection names in this our UI, so definitely it will complaining and giving, okay, you are missing this part. Okay, so we can get easily. Okay, and then what need to do, I think it is complete. Let me close that one, and then finally bracket. Okay, I think few of things missing, let me fix. Okay, so 1 2 3, so there is a one starting bracket, second is starting bracket, and third is starting bracket. Okay, so this one you have to close here, this one you have to close here. Okay, and this one you have to close here actually. Okay, this one it's close here and here. Okay, we have to add one more thing. So well, let me remove this curly brackets, we don't require that one. Okay, so that is fine. Okay, so that is fixed, that is done. So let me see, let me just recap like what we have done. We have create we have create add DbContext. Okay, actually we call the services, and then inside the services DbContext, and what is our DbContext we have just pass over here, and then create options, and inside the options we have to call actually which service provider we are trying to use. So we are trying to use use SQLite, so and pass it that configuration string, and then if it is null, so definitely throw this one. Okay, this is simple and straightforward. And finally we have actually create that implementation as well. Okay, that iBlogs repository to iBlog repository to iBlog repository. Okay, so that also need to register over here. Okay, so how we can do that? Services dot add transient. Okay, so this is a method to resolve their dependency. So there's a three-way: add transient, add singleton, add scope. So there's a other different way we can do that, resolve our dependency. So here we will use for this service blog repository to blog repository. Okay, so that's it. Okay, let me rebuild again so that we can make sure is there no any error. Okay, okay, see, will succeed, it's done. Okay, it's very simple. Like we have to create, let me zoom in. Okay, it's very simple. First we have to create a DbContext class, and then we have to implement that blog repository, and then finally we have to resolve our dependency over here. Okay, it's very simple, and this is done for this session. Okay, and then this all the layer has completed, like this, domain layer, infrastructure layer, and application layer. Finally, next session we will use how we can actually use those layer, okay, in here in the user interface, and how we can call that application layer and get the data. Okay, then next session will implement API. Okay, so till now, thank you, have a nice day, and please don't forget to subscribe.